Hello, I'm Susan Caddo. Thank you for being with us. In the latest Kids Count survey, Oklahoma was ranked 39th in the nation for the well-being of its children. For economic well-being, Oklahoma ranks 30th, but in the categories of education and health, the state ranks 42nd. Hoping to come up with ways to improve those standings, the Oklahoma Kids Count Conference brought together people who deal with children's issues every day to learn, discuss, and to find some answers.
The conference at the University of Central Oklahoma brought together students, state employees, private organizations, nonprofit groups, and Indian tribal officials who share an interest in improving the lives of Oklahoma's children. The latest Kids Count survey of Oklahoma shows just how much work they have to do. 1 in 4 Oklahoma children are still living in poverty. 30% of the state's children have parents who lack secure employment. 70% of fourth graders are not proficient in reading. 75% of eighth graders aren't proficient in math. Confirmed reports of child abuse have increased 58% since 2010, and more than 250,000 Oklahoma children experience food insecurity. Poverty and education took up much of the discussion at the conference. Carly Putnam is a policy analyst with the Oklahoma Policy Institute. She led a presentation asking the simple question, why do working Oklahomans stay poor? Putnam says the best way to measure poverty in Oklahoma is by using the self-sufficiency standard.
That looks at how much people would have to earn per hour to get by without any assistance, paying for childcare, not having mom watch your kids, paying for childcare, not being on SNAP, not being on Medicaid. And it's based on the ages of people in your household, children and adults, and by county. And I think last I looked for Tulsa County, it was about $20 an hour.
Much of Putnam's presentation centered on how difficult it is to get onto the state's safety net. For example, to receive Medicaid, you have to be a child, disabled, aged, blind, or pregnant.
If you are a moderately healthy single mother with a dependent kid and you make $500 a month, you are too wealthy to be on Medicaid in Oklahoma. Your child can be covered. You can't be.
And there are a lot of Oklahomans whose paychecks are actually shrinking.
1 in 3 Oklahomans move down 10 or more percentiles on the earnings distribution during their working years. It's a statewide issue.
The further Putnam went, the clearer it became why working Oklahomans stay poor.
Poverty doesn't persist in Oklahoma because we're not prosperous. Poverty persists in Oklahoma because we're not leveraging public and private resources to achieve any sort of prosperity that can be widely shared, right? It doesn't have to be this way.
But during the legislative panel part of the conference that included 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats from the Oklahoma House and Senate, there was little agreement on how to address the problems of poverty and education. Representative Jason Nelson.
I don't think we can use poverty as an excuse to not do anything until you get poverty fixed. Not aware of a society that's ever been able to do that.
Representative Scott Inman.
The number one issue facing those schools is poverty. You have broken families, poverty. You've got even families that are together, poverty.
The ongoing budget cuts came up often during the meetings, and the wisdom of another cut in income taxes. There again, lawmakers sharply disagreed.
For 4 or 5 years, Governor Fallin said, look to Kansas, look to Kansas, look to Kansas. We got to be like Kansas. We're going to be in this income tax sandwich. Texas has 0. Kansas is cutting them. Kansas had a $1 billion budget hole, which sounds a whole lot like what we're going to have next year, by the way.
Local communities need goods, they need services, and they need those in their community to improve the quality of life. I have 4 donor counties. We pay more than we get in services. So the income tax cut for my counties is very positive.
We cut the income tax rate from 7 to 5 1/4, 25% cut over so many years. The revenue, guess how much it went down? It went up 26% during the same period of time.
The economy was growing when it went from 7 to 5 1/4. The economy was growing. And so therefore, when you cut in times of growth, you can expect to see growth revenue the next year, not because of the tax cuts. It was in spite of the tax cuts.
And a solution to improving education rankings also brought more disagreement. For State Senator A.J. Griffin, a former teacher, an across-the-board pay hike for teachers solves nothing.
The person across the hall made exactly what I made, and I was darn good at my job. I was the Teacher of the Year in my district twice in 4 years. And to this whole belief that everything needs to be equal and everything is equal, and if we just pay them more, they're going to get better, is crap.
Senator Anastasia Pittman sees the lack of health care as a major impactor on educational success.
If your child is sick, they're not going to go to class. And now we have added to the location where they live, the environment where they live. We have grandparents raising grandchildren. We have lack of transportation issues.
So while lawmakers found agreement difficult, the Oklahoma Policy Institute's Carly Putnam says Oklahoma is actually well positioned to address poverty and all the problems that stem from it, if the state wants to.
Oklahomans are some of the most charitable people in the country. The state ranks 8th nationally in per capita giving. We've seen how we come together again and again.
The final goal of the conference was to get everyone talking, and out of that come up with some new approaches state lawmakers can agree on that actually improves the well-being of Oklahoma children.